Good afternoon, esteemed audience. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Habibie Center's Talking ASEAN seminar. My name is Patrick Kurniawan. I'm a researcher at the ASEAN Studies program here at the Habibie Center, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we start, please allow me to brief a few technical matters. First, please turn your mobile devices to silent and keep your voice to the minimum to ensure conducive environment for the seminar today. And secondly, we will entertain a Q&A sessions after the presentations. And for those that are joining from YouTube, please feel free to submit your questions in the comment throughout the sessions, and please state your name and your institutions. The Southeast Asian region has been the focus of Taiwan foreign policy in many instances, but never that it has this much emphasis ever since the start of President Tsai Ing-wen administration. The new Southbound policy, commonly referred to as the NSP, is the signature policy of President Tsai, and the essence of this policy is to create the sense of community between Taiwan and the 18 other NSP partners, which includes 10 ASEAN countries. Prior to the NSP, past administration has attempted to introduce their own southward-looking policy. President Lee Teng-hui introduced Go South policy. President Chen Shui-bian also followed with Go South policy 2.0. But what truly makes the NSP unique is the element of people-centered approach that is different from the economic-centered approach of the previous administration. And since Taiwan is entering the new administration led by President Lai Ching-te, the former vice president to President Tsai, we like to discuss the directions of the new NSP initiative. With that said, I'm incredibly proud to be part of this seminar alongside the renowned experts in this issue. I know all three of them very well, both in personal and professional level. And as someone who also do research on Taiwan and Southeast Asia relations, I have personally quoted many of their articles to supplement my own research. On top of that, each and every one of them has been a great mentor throughout my academic journey. So please allow me to introduce the speakers for today. First, we have Mas Rangga Aditya Elias, PhD. Mas Rangga is the head of International Relations Department in Bina Nusantara University. He was also the president of Indonesia Student Association in Taiwan. Secondly, we have Dr. Alan Haoyang. Dr. Yang is the executive director of Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundations, or TAEF. He also served as the executive director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies and a professor at the Graduate East Asian Affairs in National Chengchi University. Last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Ratih Kabinawa. Ratih is an adjunct research fellow at the University of Western Australia, and she is currently a MOFA Taiwan Fellowship visiting scholar. Mas Rangga, Dr. Yang, Ratih, glad to have you all here with us. Now, without further ado, let's go to Mas Rangga to deliver his presentation. Mas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. It is always an immense pleasure for me to have a Taiwan Forum discussion in Indonesia. So in this very moment, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Habibie Center for inviting me to this forum. Also for Teto Jakarta and all of the participants for this event. It's also a pleasure if you have a discussion forum about Indonesia, Taiwan, particularly ASEAN, Taiwan, particularly in the political sciences. You will meet with a very familiar faces. I think in Zoom there is my supervisor. Back to my doctoral degree in Taipei. Hello, Professor Yang. It's a pleasure to meet you. Also, Mbak Ratih, and I talked to Mbak Ratih and Patrick. This feels like Binus Forum because Mbak Ratih previously also lecturer in Binus. Mas Patrick also student in Binus. But I think both of them already transformed into my colleague, and they are promising Taiwan scholars from Indonesia. So I really appreciate to have a forum with them. Okay. This is quite challenging. 15 minutes, right, Patrick? Okay, I will try to put it in 15 minutes. So my sharing today will talk about the implementation and challenges of Taiwan NSP in ASEAN during the Tsai Ing-wen administration. And when I cover this, I'm trying to give a broad sense of this policy, but in the same time also not too detail, because I think Bharati will cover the detail of the impact to the ASEAN, right? Bharati just too modest in here. Maybe can turn the next. Okay, so speaking about the type NSP main objective, I think this four is become the main objective of the NSP or New Southbound policy. Well, some of article or scholars call it Go South policy previously. There's also Southbound policy, and then now currently is New Southbound policy. And I think the previous policy for the new southbound policy, go south policy, it's always expand two-way exchanges in the area of trade and economic, of course. I mean, there's include investment as well. But with the new southbound policy, there's also tourism, culture, and talent as well. And the other three, I think it's become the new feature of the policy when they encourage the industry to adopt the new southbound approach, also cultivate the human resources, and expand multilateral and bilateral dialogue. I think those three become the new feature of the new southbound policy. That's why they call it the new southbound policy. So in this policy, they are trying to be people-centered, and if previous policy, I can say the sense is to have or to compete with China or trying to go beyond their dependence to China in economic area. In this sense, they are not trying to go in that direction, but they are trying to more people just get integrate with the regional in the south and also expand the number of partner. Next. I think this is the number of partner, 18th, and we can see Southeast Asia become, all of Southeast Asian country become the partner, and the others also Oceania and South Asia. And I think from those partners, Southeast Asia is the very oldest partner to this kind of policy. I think from 1994, Lee Teng-hui already put this policy with the focus in ASEAN. Next. This is I gave a little picture about how it cover everything with the partner. So although some people when talk about southbound policy, it's always go to Lee Teng-hui, Chen Soo-bian, and Tsai Ing-wen, of course. But I'm trying to put Ma Ying-jeou as well in this picture, and I always think that the new southbound policy become the southbound policy 4.0 because this is the newest feature of southbound policy. So as we can see in here, sorry, as we can see in here, the blue one, it's the focus, the partner of Go South policy at that time, Lee Teng-hui in 94, and still trying to reduce economic dependency because at that time it's really dependent in economic exchange with China. And the, what's called brown, I think. The brown one is Chen Soo-bian era, and he trying to put the focus on Taiwan's economic independency. So there is a lot of effort to bring the economic of Taiwan, especially in trade and investment, to Southeast Asia. And Ma Ying-jeou, it's a little bit, I think, it's a little bit different with the others because Ma Ying-jeou it's not using the southbound policy or go south policy. However, in Ma Ying-jeou era, I think at here you can see this one, and this is Singapore, this is New Zealand, and also in Indonesia, but I'm not give a circle in it. Ma Ying-jeou trying to bring an economic agreement. So there's there's a stepping stone for regional integration in this sense, and Ma Ying-jeou bring it through some of the country in the region. And of course, not to forget this one, where I give a circle as well in China, because there is also ECFA with China, where I think this is the best way for Ma Ying-jeou in order to secure the economic cooperation with Singapore as well as with New Zealand. by developing their economic agreement with China. And Tsai Ing-wen, it's even bigger now, the red one. It's cover more country, 18 country, and not only ASEAN, but also South Asia and also Oceania. So when we talk about Southbound, it's really in the southern part of Taiwan. Next. Uh, Concerning, I'm talking about the implementation, so we will talk about how it impacted our trade. And as we can see, I put all of the country in the new southbound policy in order to get the clear picture about how it run with those countries. And we can see in the trend line, this one, it keep increasing. The import from NSP country to Taiwan from 2003 until 2004. Next. Also for the export, there is an increasing number of export from the NSP country to Taiwan. And I think compared to the previous era, I think this become bigger and bigger. Next. This one is Taiwan outbound investment. Uh, in outbound investment with some of the countries in the region, there's also increasing number of investment, and also I think because that one for 2024 still counting. I think it's still June currently, but the number show a very good trend and increasing trend. Next. Migrant workers, of course. I think about Ratih and Patrick, who live in Taiwan, who used to live in Taiwan previously, met with a lot of Indonesian people in Taiwan. And in that sense, the migrant worker is quite a big number. And I think currently in industry, it's Vietnam, yeah, supposed to. Yeah, Vietnam. But next, in a social welfare, those who work in industry, those who work in Taiwan industry. In social welfare, those who work as caregiver and other social aspect or domestic aspect in the Taiwan. And I think Indonesia outnumber everyone in here. And currently, the official statistic say it's like 340 something. In an official release. The number might be different from another sources, but that's also official release from Taiwan. Next. In international student, we can see in international students, the number increasing really fast. And of course, in international student, the one I think that outnumber everyone is from Vietnam. This one. But the trend line for every country there is also increasing, shows that there is a really good academic ties between Taiwan and the NSP countries. Next. This is the visitor to Taiwan. If previously tourism, it's not the aspect of southbound policy. Now tourism become the aspect of southbound policy. There's declining, as we know, there's COVID-19 in 2001, 2000 until 2022, but then it rebound really fast and it increased also really fast. We can see this is the previous era, this is the new era, and it's increased because I think there is a visa exemption from Taiwan that gave to no NSP countries or NSP partners. Next. This one. How about the cooperation? What happened in the cooperation and treaties? Although there is an absence of diplomatic relations between Taiwan and Southeast Asian countries, but there is a good connection and a good relation, government to government, and we also have representative in there. And I think each year we have an annual meeting for the representative from Taiwan and Indonesia to talk many issues. But I would like to highlight this one compared to the previous one. If from the data is from 2013, it's more likely to talk about taxation, investment guarantee, and then protection of IPR, agriculture. Agriculture already become one of the technical cooperation since 1976, and medical care. This one, medical care. But after Tsai Ing-wen come into office, there is also peer intellectual property rights and associated standard. Also educational, cultural, scientific, and technical cooperations. The development of financial assistance. This one, I think, the most important one in the COVID-19 era, public health and medicine. As we know, Taiwan is one of the best public health care in the world. I think now currently number 2, yeah, or number 1 maybe already. But me, Ratih, and Mas Patrick, we feel that benefits right through the national health insurance, and in that sense, previously this public health it's not become one of the sector that Taiwan tried to create a cooperation, but currently, I mean, in the Tsai Ing-wen era, it become one of the focus. Also tourism, and it's also still appear in another because this is a 4 years data, and it's also appear and become, maybe can zoom out again. We can see in here there's a lot of blank data because there is no such thing of the treaty, but in here there are already a lot of treaty happen through Taiwan. Next. Okay. Why? What the difference between the one that Tsai Ing-wen applied and those 3 previous presidents? I think the first aspect is government institution. Previously, in Lee Teng-hui, Chen Soo-bian, and Ma Ying-jeou, it's mostly or mainly led by MOFA and Ministry of Economic Affairs, MOEA. But in Tsai Ing-wen, right after she inaugurated, I think in 2016, she established the new Southbound Policy Office right under the presidential office, and also include the National Security Council, also several of the government institutions like MOFA, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Economic Affairs, and Tourism Bureau. And they also have their very specific budget to expand the NSP project in NSP country. I mean the NSP partner country. Speaking about the guideline, the former 3 presidents not have a very specific guideline about this, but in Tsai Ing-wen era, she already issued a guideline, the so-called guidelines of the new southbound policy. So there's already a guideline and direction how Taiwan will run this policy, and action plan after the guideline, then a release of action plan. And it's quite clear action plan in the New Southbound Policy Promotion Plan and New Southbound Policy Work Plan. And I think in this sense, it's also quite clear action plan. I think only Ma Ying-jeou that have this kind of action plan. But however, the action plan is not official because it's came through the feasibility studies, and most of the agreement that issued at his era, it's start with the feasibility studies of economic cooperation and the supporting entities. Not specified here. It doesn't mean that there is no such supporting entity, but at that time, the entity, I mean the Taiwan institution or Taiwan bodies at that time, it's not specifically have their mandate or have their direction in order to run the policy. But in Tsai Ing-wen era, there is a TAITRA that talk about trade. I think there's also supporting entity like TAEF, the one that Professor Yang or Professor Alan Howe now run it, and also TEC, Taiwan Education Center. I think in Indonesia there's like 1, 2, 3. More than that, 5 already. I see. So this help through education and also trade and people-to-people exchange. Next, area of implementation. Uh, okay. Area of implementation. So although there's a lot of area of implementation, I'm trying to categorize it into 3 area. The one that increasing the economic ties, the one that maintaining technical cooperation, and the one that enhancing the people-to-people exchange. And in the increasing economic ties, I think Little Huis and Chubian have a same area of implementation, while Mainchou put regional integration through the agreement, economic agreement, while Tsai Ing-wen, I think it's more comprehensive with supply chains, domestic demand market, infrastructure project, industry talent, culture, regional integration, and also negotiation and dialogue through the increasing economic ties. And in maintaining technical cooperation, the oldest one, I think, the agricultural one, and it keep maintained through those 3 presidents era. But in Tsai Ing-wen era, there is also healthcare, agricultural, technology, and strategic alliance on these technical cooperations. And in enhancing people-to-people exchange, I think education ties and tourism already appear in Chen Subian through some of agreement under the representative office. Mainjo also still run with this area, but in Tsai Ing-wen there's also new immigrants and overseas Taiwanese network in there. Next. So how this new southbound policy meets with the initiative in the region? I think it's a different approach with the previous one. If in the previous one, like I said in Tsai Ing-wen, I mean in Le Tenghui era and Chen Shu-bian era, they are trying to compete with China. They're trying to avoid China. But in Tsai Ing-wen era, the policy, the new southbound policy, is not trying to compete with China. They're trying to integrate with the region. That's why they increase the people-to-people exchange. They put this people-centered element as their main focus, and also this, although they have to meet with another initiative, the so-called Free and Open Indo-Pacific, but the close connection between Taiwan with Indo-Pacific Indo-Pacific countries, the free and open Indo-Pacific countries, I think it gives benefit for Taiwan in order to make the compatible effort through their NSP. Next, I put this one. I put this one because currently, maybe in below my presentation, there is total e-commerce revenue in Southeast Asia. Currently, e-commerce become one of a promising area, and Indonesia, I mean, Southeast Asia in 2022, it reached like 99.5 billion. It's equivalent to 1,490 trillion rupiah. So you can imagine it. And particularly in Indonesia, it's like covered like 52% of it. And we can see this e-commerce, it's run through the region, like Shopee, although it's based in Singapore, but Shopee also have a network. I mean, the e-commerce also used in Vietnam, in at least 7 countries. The exact same thing happened to Lazada and go to Bukalapak and Blibli maybe in Indonesia. But what I'm trying to say, this is, I think, the challenges that supposed to be respond by Taiwan, which is in the previous, I mean, in Tsai Ing-wen era, the e-commerce sector is still not enabled, and I think this is one of the challenges because currently everything become digital, right? I think every one of us in here already use either Shopee, Tokopedia, and TikTok. TikTok now have their own store, right? And Lazada, Bukalapak, and Blibli. And I give a circle in here to show currently most of this e-commerce It's run by Chinese corporate. We can see Tencent, Alibaba Group, also TikTok through Alibaba Group. And to some extent, it's left a lot of area to be explored by Taiwan, concerning that Taiwan is quite advanced in technology as well. And because this kind of digital economy things also run under the cloud computing system, and cloud computing system and everything, it's one of the advancement that Taiwan have currently. Next. To close my sharing today, there's another challenges that I'm trying to put in here. There's how the development of Taiwan discourse currently in the region. I'm trying to scraping the data about publication on Taiwan, uh, publication that talk about Taiwan, go south policy, because I just searched through the old year publication as well, and then new southbound policy, Southeast Asia. That's the keyword for the scraping data, and we found that there is an increasing number of publication. Shows there's there's a really good academic exchange and also academic cooperation through this. However, if we take a look into the detail, next, this one. Most of those publication, the total is 88 publication from 1978 until 2022, the previous graph, and most of it came from Taiwan, United States. Well, Indonesia and Malaysia become the third and fourth, and also the last one is China. Talk about this. I think there's challenges for Taiwan to develop this discourse in the region in order to help people who would like to have a more connection, more integration with Taiwan in this effort. And this is one of the challenges. If we compare the data with Chinese discourse, for instance, it's they have a lot of publication that help many people to understand about the discourse more. And if we take a look into this one, the area, maybe you can zoom in for the area. Most of the publication, like 60% of it, came from the social sciences. So although the new southbound policy trying to put people centered and not too political, but the discourse in the region appear to more social sciences. I think it's a challenge also for Taiwan also to think, for instance, like medicine, because like I've said, Taiwan, one of Taiwan advancement is public sector, and I think the national health in Taiwan, they open the data for research and publication about what happened with their public health sector, and it will help many people to understand about the Taiwan public sector area. And another things like engineering and technology, which also Taiwan quite advanced in this thing. More research and publication in here will obviously will bring a lot of people from various background from the region to understand more, to create the discourse, and of course to help the policy maker in order to get more insight about how they can benefit, get a mutual benefit from the new southbound policy. I think that's all for my sharing. Thank you very much, and I hope we will have a fruitful discussion after this.
Thank you, Mas Rangga, for the presentation. But if I can conclude, maybe perhaps there are several shortcomings, as you mentioned, for example, regarding the discourse and definitely regarding the e-commerce potential as well. But based on your presentations, I think statistically speaking, it did its job in terms of expanding the people dimension from Taiwan and ASEAN relations. But let's go to the next speaker, Dr. Alan Haoyang, who himself is a chief executive officer at the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. Dr. Alan, please feel free to start your session.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I see the yes? Yeah. Uh, Good afternoon. Selamat siang. Nama saya Alan. My name is Alan Yang. I'm currently the professor of Southeast Asia Study at National Chengchi University, and also serving as the CEO for the new Southbound policy think tank, Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. And I'm very delighted to attend this meaningful engagement. But it's unfortunately that I cannot make it to participate in person. But hopefully, I can continue our conversation and to meet all of the distinguished guests and also the colleague of the Habibie Center in Jakarta very soon. Well, also, my special thank goes to TECO for supporting all the academic and expert communities' conversation and effort in understanding Taiwan and also to work out some meaningful project. I know I have very short period of time of my presentation. I will try to make it fast. The topic of my presentation will continue Rangga's insight and suggestion. So I will focus on the prospect of the new southbound policy and under President Lai Ching-te in fostering Taiwan-Southeast Asia relation. Next, please. Yes. It's just mentioned earlier that Taiwan shares some smart facility and digital technology with our neighboring partners. And that includes the smart farming in terms of the drone pilot program and also the smart healthcare system. And that is related to the practice of the new southbound policy. However, Taiwan's new southbound policy practice has been far more than this during the past 8 years. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. Mentioned by Rangga that this policy is specifically focused on people-centered. It is true that people-centered focus on the interpersonal exchange and engagement. Those interpersonal engagement, including the elite, the policy decision maker, as well as the general public. And we all know that Taiwan society has been long existing as the migrant society. So far, there are more than 1 million of the residents in Taiwan from Southeast Asian country, including 700,000 migrant labor as our economic helper, and also the more than 500,000 transnational marriage spouse and their children. Actually, they have become the key component of Taiwanese society. So with this in mind, we know that Taiwan definitely has been emerging and installed as a part of Southeast Asia. And not only for this incoming resident, but Taiwan's economic footprint, as well as our Taiwanese business, enterprise, factory, the contribution to the local economy and national economy in key Southeast Asia countries has been there, and also actually starting from late 1980s. And with the different presidency, starting from President Li Denghui, 1990s, President Chen Shui-bian, 2000s. But I would like to clarify that I doubt that President Ma Ying-jeou had clearly vote that these go south or the Southeast Asian policy is his priority concern, because he much focus on much of the cross-strait stability. So apart from the incoming community from Southeast Asia, it is true that Taiwan's business and footprint, as well as our Taiwanese people, young student and also the intern in Southeast Asia has been increasing. And next one, please. So I think I will not duplicate what Rangga just mentioned, but I will focus more on the most recent update of the new southbound policy. During the past 8 years, the commitment made by President Tsai Ing-wen and also Taiwanese government has been existing and has been implementing this the so-called people-centered new southbound policy. And what is people-centered? Definitely, it is the strategic gesture to echo the ASEAN people-centered community building process. And with the people-centered in mind, Taiwan's policy or strategy has been keen to facilitate the welfare of the people in ASEAN country, as well as to link up with the civil society in Southeast Asian country. And we not only, by projecting this Taiwan's foreign policy, but to facilitate the bi-directional exchange. So that is no one-dimensional approach for this new southbound policy. But we also welcome the incoming student labor force as well as the other residents from Southeast Asia to Taiwan. And with this people-centered development goal, it has been the effort made by government, our civil society, and also our business sector to facilitate the multifaceted partnership. So not only focus on economic, although Rangga just mentioned some like e-commerce, other platform focus on the economic side, but it's go beyond the economic performance. And it is true that President Tsai Ing-wen in 2017 first announced that this new southbound policy is Taiwan's regional strategy for Asia. And in 2022, she reiterated again at the My Foundation organized Yushan Forum that the new southbound policy is at the center of Taiwan's Indo-Pacific strategy. So comparing with the first wave of the Go South policy in 1990s, the new southbound policy covered more 18 partner countries and 8 priority countries, including Indonesia and also other Southeast Asia countries, plus India and Australia. And as mentioned, that the discourse of this new southbound policy is, I would say, is public diplomacy plus the warm power diplomacy. So what is the warm power diplomacy? We try to make it different from other major power, even great powers, Indo-Pacific engagement with Southeast Asia by highlighting Taiwan's, we are quite a small country as a middle power, but even with the limited resources, we still want to contribute. So the warm power that we advocate has two connotations. Number one is to share the warmth to those in demand. So the partner in demand, that is some of our new southbound policy partner country, when they are in short of resources, especially such as the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, Taiwanese government, our society has donated many medical resources and facility to our neighbors to help them overcome the difficulty. Number two, the connotation of the warm power diplomacy is to keep Taiwan central and keep Taiwan warm in our partner and neighbors' daily discussion. So that is the legacy of President Tsai Ing-wen to make Taiwan indispensable. So in her last 2 years, we find out the U.S.-China rivalry over the semiconductor chips, the crisis that highlight the importance of Taiwan's semiconductor, high-end semiconductor chips such as TSMC. but Taiwan's importance has been more than the semiconductor chips. So what makes Taiwan indispensable would be of interest to our partner country and our neighbors. The third important discourse is we strongly advocate the diplomacy at home. The Yushan Forum started in 2017, and my foundation, starting from 2018, we organized the Yushan Forum annually. That is the important platform to invite global leaders, regional leaders, such as the Indonesian Vice President Kala. He also attended the Yushan Forum through the online and also showed the support to us. Some Indonesian leaders attend this forum to brainstorm how Asian countries can work together to overcome the common challenge. So that is the practice of diplomacy at home. And yet, it is true that Rangga mentioned that there are a few guideline, work plan, and also the action plan for the new Southbound policy. And we actually, during the past 8 years, the government worked very hard to concentrate the resources into 5 flagship programs, which I will mention later. But not only the government took the lead in implementing the new Southbound policy, but also the enterprise and the civil society, the NGO, are the key supporter and facilitator of this policy. Next one, please. Next, please. So this is the 18 country in total, and this is important. That next one, please. Next one, please. Yes, this is the cross-sectoral partnership, just as I mentioned, the PPPP approach. We know that public sector refers to government took the lead in setting up the direction of the new Southbound policy. And the private sector, starting from 1980s, Taiwan's private sector has been shaping the regional production network in Southeast Asia, and also facilitate the trade and investment between Southeast Asia and other foreign investors. But the most important of all, comparing with the previous presidency, is the people sector. That is the civil society. So this civil society organization work very hard to seek partnership at different Southeast Asian countries. Some of them are university, foundation, think tank, such as my think tank, TAEF, Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. We work quite closely with the regional leading think tanks, such as the Habibie Center in Indonesia, and also other think tank and foundation in Southeast Asia country. So we do joint effort in promoting good governance, promoting social and economic resilience, and also to work out a feasible community of cooperation. So this is the new configuration of the Taiwan's new Southbound policy, comparing with the previous Go South and also in Chen Shui-bian era's policy. Next, please. So as I mentioned, that the government led 5 flagship programs. Some of them has been mentioned by Rangga. For this one, every ministry, there are 5 ministry in shouldering these 5 flagship programs. For the first one is Ministry of Economic Affairs. They work very hard to promote the bilateral investment agreement. That is the institutional tie with our partners, neighbors in the region. With that institutional arrangement, that can guarantee the interest and the benefit of the country, stakeholder, and also our people. So starting from 2017, the Philippines first support the new Southbound policy by promoting the bilateral investment with Taiwan. In 2018, Indian government approved that BIA with Taiwan. 2019, Vietnam government also agreed to renew the bilateral investment agreement with Taiwan. And even this year, Thai government also ratified this agreement with Taiwan. So those agreements successfully diversify the risk of over-depend on one single market. That is China, as mentioned by Rangga, that the very beginning of this Southeast Asia approach in Kuomintang administration, they want to avoid the risk and diversify those risks against one single market. And it is true that in the very beginning, new southbound policy also followed this similar mentality. However, during the past 8 years, Taiwan found that our relationship should not base on the risk diversification against China. We need to develop the genuine and also the trustworthy partnership with Southeast Asian countries. So the idea of the implementation of the new southbound policy has been going beyond this China upper hand policy. And the second flagship program shielded by Ministry of Education, we work on the education and talent cultivation. So it's not necessary in the industrial talent, although we receive incoming inbound students from key Southeast Asian countries. So currently, the most amount of those scholarship student and inbound student comes from Indonesia, from Vietnam, from Thailand, and also from Malaysia. And not only for the inbound Southeast Asia students, but we do encourage Taiwanese young people, young students with the scholarship to study in Southeast Asian country, and also to take the internship in different Southeast Asian countries, including the international organization, the private company, university, and also other NGOs in the region. And we are happy to learn that even during the pandemic, the total foreign students in Taiwan, they were around 980,000. But more than 56% of these 980,000 students comes from our new southbound partner country. And the other three, I think, are also very important. One is the regional agricultural program by our Ministry of Agriculture. And that program also beneficial to Indonesia as well, such as we set up the comprehensive agricultural demonstration farm in the region in Karawang province near Jakarta. We jointly work with the local stakeholder to provide the resources and training program to local farmers to help stabilize the production of the rice, and also to invite them to take training program in Taiwan. And that is the successful example, not only in Jakarta, in Indonesia, but also in Philippines and in Vietnam. And so far, we also pay attention to the young farmers. So we invited the young farmers from ASEAN country to took the internship in Taiwanese rural community. They can learn the marketing strategy and also learn how to manage the plantation and also their farm through the smart facility and system. So we keep working with our stakeholder in the region by promoting this regional agricultural cooperation project. And 2 years ago, I am delighted to welcome the Indonesian counterpart from the PJI Foundation. And they also invited some, such as the First Resources Company from Indonesia, to meet our decision maker at our Ministry of Agriculture So they jointly discuss the possibility of cooperation between Taiwan and the region in terms of the oil palm, renewable energy, and also other priority issues. And that is the case that led by the government program. And the fourth one is the Medical and Public Health Corporation. Ministry of Health and Welfare shouldered this. And starting from 2018, we work out the one country, one program to set up the new Southbound policy medical center in 7 Southeast Asia countries plus India. And so far, there are 7 countries with 10 NSP medical center. With that, we have been successfully training more than 1,300 medical doctors, nurses, personnel, and also the expert in Taiwan. And they are able to use Taiwan's medication, smart medical system, and also those remote medical system. And that is an important initiative and successfully done by Taiwan and our neighboring stakeholder. And with that, the medical excellence of Taiwan working with medical excellence of Japan to jointly explore the medical market in Southeast Asia. And we know, I just returned from Manila and I found that some good news updates, such as the hospital of Chengchi will be aiming at establish a new hospital in Manila. So with those NSP medical centers, I would say we can jointly train the new generation of the medical staff and also to equip them with the updated knowledge, insight, and professions. And final one, that is the Yushan Forum. Sorry for the typo. The Yushan Forum is organized by my foundation, TAEF. It's an annual event to gather the regional leader, decision maker, and thought leader to Taiwan and to discuss the cooperation project and framework. Next, please. Apart from the government-led 5 flagship program, there have been a long tradition of the civil society-led initiative. Definitely, in New Southbound policy, we had the same pattern, and TAEF TAF served as the driving force for this non-government effort. We have our own 5 action plan, 5 core action plan. I usually make a metaphor that these 5 action plan comparing with the 5 flagship program of the government, just like 5 fingers of 5 different hands. So those fingers that managed by TAEF is to shake hands with our partner and to join hands to work with others. Our 5 core action plan include the Young Leader Initiative. Last week, we just had our Young Leader Youth Camp in Taiwan, and I'm happy to welcome many Indonesian young talent and young leaders to come to Taiwan to meet their counterpart, meet their NGO friends. And the young leader is the key of our Asian development and also the future of our region. The second one is the civil society. We focus on the migrant labor, on the transnational marriage spouse, and also the second generation. This weekend, we will have a new project to enrich the understanding and also the Asian identity of the transnational marriage families, children. Some of them are now in the college year. So they will take the training program and to know more about their mother's country and also Southeast Asia region. And we also conduct important survey to understand what is the contribution made by Taiwan's NGO in the region. And we come up with a report that is Taiwan's NGO's humanitarian assistance in Southeast Asia during the COVID-19 pandemic. And those report and survey proceeding you can find from our website, TAEF website. Please Google www.taef.org. You can find all those useful information. And we serve as the think tank for new Southbound policy. That is the task assigned by President Tsai Ing-wen. So every year we will conduct an image survey, Taiwan image, the survey on Taiwan image and Taiwan business image in Southeast Asia country. In 2019, we conducted the first ever in Vietnam, 2020 in Indonesia, 2021 in Thailand, 2022 in Singapore, 2023 in Malaysia, and this year we are now in the process of the survey in Philippines. So totally we aim at establish a database on understanding how Taiwan and our business has been perceived by the local community in ASEAN and also in the region. And we produced the policy report and submitted to decision makers such as President, National Security Council, our Foreign Minister. And so far, we conducted successfully on 2 Taiwan-India report, 1 Taiwan-Southeast Asia report, 1 Taiwan-Australia report, and 3 Taiwan-United States report. And we are welcome and be delighted to work with Indonesia think tank on the Taiwan-Indonesia policy report. And that can enrich the discussion of Taiwan among the Indonesia's expert community. The fourth one, we focus on very unique project called Regional Resilience that is related to disaster prevention and disaster preparedness. So every April, we will have the Secure Tech exhibition in Taipei and to organize the Asia Pacific Regional Disaster Preparedness Summit. And with that summit, we invited the decision maker, the governor, and also the parliament member from Southeast Asian country to Taiwan to jointly discuss how government can work better with the society to do the fire prevention, disaster search and rescue and relief. Those important issues has been the achievement for the past few years. And the final one, we are very keen to develop the soft power interaction, such as we invited the young artists and cultural institution to come to Taiwan, and even we had the film festival in Southeast Asia country. In 2021, we had a program called the Austronesian Festival by enabling the Kaohsiung Museum of Fine Art to work with a museum in Yogyakarta to have this 2 months art festival simultaneously in Kaohsiung City and in Yogyakarta. So those co-action plans achievement will be accumulated into the annual Yushan Forum to demonstrate how non-government effort has been shaping the practice of the new Southbound policy. Next one, please. And this is an important example that I can share with you that Taiwan's Ministry of Agriculture work with Indonesia, work with Malaysia, and also our university to provide the pilot training program, the drone pilot training program. So the young farmer and also the senior farmer can learn how to manage the drone to do the patrol over the forest fire, the haze, and also the plantation in Indonesia. So if you are interested in this program, you may contact our TECRO and also the Ministry of Agriculture. Next, please. And it is true that Pak Rangga mentioned a few ministries engaging in this new southbound policy. And I mentioned that 5 flagship programs has been shouldered by 5 ministries. However, there are total 11 government agencies working together to promote this new southbound policy, and including our Ministry of Interior and also our National Fire Agency. And we provide a training program to the firefighters in Philippines, in Vietnam, and hopefully we hope to work with Indonesian government in this training program for the local junior officer and firefighters for the disaster relief and rescue, and also disaster preparedness experiences. The next one, please. And Bob Rangga mentioned the guideline and work plan of the new Southbound policy. Actually, that was dating back to 2017. And who was in charge? Then, at that period of time, the premier was in charge. The premier was Lai Ching-te. And he is the incumbent president starting from this May. And President Lai Ching-te attended our Yushan Forum organized by my foundation a few times and delivered very influential policy remark and speech to the vision and the future of the new Southbound policy. And next one, please. Okay, I think I have already surpassed the time, but I will make a very quick conclusion. Now is in the era of geopolitics crisis. Great power compete, major power manage, and also the middle power and small power need to work together so that we can navigate through strategizing our strengths and influence. And this current Indo-Pacific security configuration as multi-dimensional security. So Taiwan's new southbound policy as the practice of the warm power diplomacy can serve for the people's interest and the benefit of the region, including Indonesian people. And I think it is not only the whole government approach for enabling this policy, but it also shows the strong commitment as of Taiwan being a trustworthy partner and indispensable partner of ASEAN country. I will try to summarize the next blueprint of the next phase of the new southbound policy. I call that new southbound policy plus NSPP or NSP plus. And this plus is also borrowing from the ASEAN plus model. So I think next one, please. I will say that although President Lai Ching-te not yet conveyed his vision of the new southbound policy, however, we had a conversation, a meeting with him earlier this year, and he, from different occasions, he strongly showed that he will continue this new southbound policy. So I try to categorize 2 parts. One is the government-led effort that may be declared in the future as President Tsai Ing-wen and his diplomatic team think throughout how to enable this new southbound policy. But according to the previous 8 years experiences and also the recent move, I would suggest that these 3 elements will be the key effort led by the government. Number 1 is the digital technology. Number 2 is semiconductor supply chain or the resilient supply chain. Number 3 is resilience, including the stability, as well the social resilience and also the disaster preparedness. And these 3 will be important for the next phase issue area of the President Lai Ching-te's take in the new southbound policy. And if we look at the achievement, we can find the very encouraging result that starting from 2022, the original idea of this new southbound policy has been achieved. Starting from 2022, Taiwan's investment in new southbound policy partner country, the amount has already surpassed the amount that Taiwan's investment in China market. Not only for this investment, but also for the business sector. The profit made by our Taiwanese business in NSP partner country, the amount also surpassed the profit they earned in China market. So if we only focus on the diversification, risk diversifying goal, I will say, yeah, it reached the goal. However, we need to do more because during the past 8 years, the solid and resilient infrastructure of the new Southbound policy has been installed. And with the partnership across the region, we need to explore more and step upon this foundation to jointly tackle the challenge and to further secure the common interest. So apart from this government-led effort, I will be delighted to share with you that the civil society-led effort has been more obvious and clear. In terms of my foundation, TAEF, we will continue to serve as the think tank of the new southbound policy. And our approach will work very hard to materialize the three corridors, such as the think tank corridor, that next year we will starting from our partner think tank in every Southeast Asia country and new southbound policy country, and to invite them to jointly organize the think tank summit in the second quarter of 2025. And we hope that the think tank summit can serve as the important foundation for brainstorming among the policy decision, policy expert and decision maker. And then we can come up with very useful suggestion and policy advice to our national leader on different issue area. The second corridor would be the new southbound policy NGO corridor. As I mentioned earlier, we provided training programs to different target group. And here we will work very hard to establish Taiwan as the NGO center for the Indo-Pacific country so that the NGO young leader and advocate can jointly come to Taiwan and to meet the partners and to discuss the blueprint for the cooperation. Number three, the new southbound policy youth corridor. I had a chance to discuss with some youth focus foundation and think tank in the region, such as PGI Foundation on the innovation and the youth development, and Unilab in Philippines. So we come up with some idea to organize the youth summit, and then that can cover the sustainable development goal and also how to enable and empower the young generation for a better future as a part of the supporter of the regional community. So with that, I think I should stop here. Next, please. So my final slide will be the QR code for the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. You are mostly welcome to go through the website and to find those reports online. Thank you very much. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yang, to talk about the new Southbound Policy Plus. I think it's interesting to know that it will continue to the next administration. But I think it's also important to understand the ASEAN perspective towards the new Southbound Policy. Why don't we go to Ratih to listen to that perspective? The floor is yours, Mbak.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick, for the brief introduction in the beginning, and also to Pak Rangga and also Professor Alan Young for your thorough presentation. I am glad to be back at the BB Center to discuss the implementation of the NSP during its first and second iterations. If I could look back, I remember sitting in the same room in 2017, a few months after the policy was first announced in November 2016. So Habibie Center also organized the same forum for new Southbound policy. And 8 years have gone, and now we return to the same room discussing the implication of the policy for the region, especially Southeast Asia region. I appreciate the commitment of the Habibie Center and also the Taipei Economic and Trade Office to actively encourage dialogue on Taiwan's new southbound policy in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia. And it's also an honor for me to meet with a former colleague in Binus, Mbak Mita, Mas Tangguh, Mas Rangga, and also students from Binus University. Yes, I've been in Binus for like 5 years and then moved to Australia. And I think Binus has been uh, one of the most influential supporters for Taiwan studies in Jakarta, because most of the Taiwan graduates are working in Binus right now, especially in the IR department. So yeah, the lobby influence of Taiwan is very strong in Binus. So my job today is to briefly analyze the implication of the NSP on ASEAN as an institution and also ASEAN as a part of the member countries. So yeah, if you look at the picture that I put here, this is a Southeast Asian bookstore in Taiwan. Unfortunately, I forgot when it was established, but I think this bookstore now become one of the prominent voices to improve the language and cultural exchanges between Taiwan and Southeast Asia. If you got the opportunity to visit Taiwan, please visit the bookstore, especially on Saturday afternoon, because I'm hosting an Indonesian salon every Saturday in that bookstore to help assist Taiwanese to do language exchanges. So many Taiwanese are keen to learn Bahasa Indonesia, and I help them voluntarily at that bookstore. Okay, don't forget about that. It's promotion. So next for my slides. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think this is the agenda of my talk today. I wouldn't go into the details of the new southbound policy itself because it has thoroughly covered by the previous two speakers. Very amazing presentation. But if I might summary the Taiwan-ASEAN relations, in my opinion, their engagement can be divided into 3 stages of development. The first one was marked by Taiwan's effort to build regional ties with ASEAN member countries, especially during the 1960s to the 1980s. During these periods, cooperation focused on education, agricultural technical mission. The first one was sent to Indonesia in 1976 or 67. 76, so yeah. So, and also small scale of FDI coming from Taiwan to the region. And then the second phase began in the 1990s, especially under the presidency of Lee Teng-hui, when Taiwan started democratization together with the democratization process in Southeast Asia as well, because Taiwan and Southeast Asia are considered to be the third wave of democratization in the 1990s, promoted its new identity as Taiwan, and initiated pragmatic diplomacy in the region. And the last stage is the new era of the NSP, in which Taiwan aims to deepen regional ties with ASEAN member countries through two-way exchanges. That is the 3 stages of development between Taiwan and Southeast Asia relations. And what makes the NSP different from the previous Southward initiative? I think both Mas Rangga and also Professor Alan Howe have mentioned the dimension, the elements of people to people that makes that the emphasis on people-to-people ties as the utmost importance of the policy marked Taiwan's efforts in formally extending the scope of cooperation with countries in the region from economic to people. So as you can see here, I quoted Tsai Ing-wen statement on the 2016 Forum on Opportunities for New Southbound Policy. So you can see that people-to-people are the basis for the new Southbound policy. Here is the key framework of the new Southbound policy. It covers 4 areas of cooperation: economic collaboration, talent exchange, shared resources, and regional links. I wouldn't go into detail because it has been covered by the previous speaker. Now, the question is, how deep has the NSP contributed to Taiwan-ASEAN relations, especially after 8 years in office? To Jokowi, when he referred to Taiwan and South Korea as among the most developed economies in the world, his impression of Taiwan is that it is a rich country with a comparative advantage in its product. So clearly, when referring to Taiwan, the idea of Taiwan, according to our president, still president, okay, not yet, not yet October today. So still with our president, that he referred to Taiwan as a rich country that has a comparative advantage in its product. So, of course, what sort of comparative advantage that Taiwan has? Supply chain, from manufacturing and microchip industry. I think Professor Alan Howe also mentioned about the indispensable role of Taiwan as an economic actor in the region, especially in the manufacturing and also microchip industry. Taiwan also among the 10th largest trading and investment partners in ASEAN. I think Mas Rangga has covered the number, and I'm glad that Mas Rangga brought the statistics. It's mean I do not need to cover the statistics of trading and investment between Taiwan and Southeast Asia, and also advanced and innovative technology and services. So if we to further understand the economic impacts of the NSP, we can also look at the surveys on Taiwan and Taiwanese business images in Indonesia and Thailand, produced by the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation. So Professor Alan Howe mentioned about this survey before. I think we need this sort of surveys more on how the Southeast Asian countries' perspective or perception towards Taiwan, because we have seen so many surveys on ASEAN perspective on China, ASEAN perspective on the US or great power politics, but we haven't seen any surveys on ASEAN perspective on Taiwan. So maybe this is the job of Habibie Center next time to collaborate with other think tank, maybe with TAEF, on how then to create the surveys on ASEAN's perceptions towards Taiwan, so then we can have a full understanding on how countries in the region perceive Taiwan as a economic economic player in the region. So that's an important task, homework, that maybe academic communities and think tank communities could work on in the future. Here, if you can see from the survey, actually the survey has lots of figures on it. So I only pick up a few, like two figures from the surveys, especially in Thailand and also Indonesia, regarding the contribution of Taiwanese business in Indonesia. And of course, the first one that come up is the creating job opportunities, especially in Thailand. You can see that the percentage is quite high, about 83% of the respondents. The respondents are all business people in Thailand and in Indonesia that have been engaged with business activities with Taiwan. So, and then also the same thing also occurred in Indonesia. The same results also appear in Indonesia, that creating job opportunities become the first contribution of Taiwan's economic to Southeast Asia, to in this case Indonesia and Thailand. So lots of, and the surveys also covered about the whether Taiwan is seen as a positive images, have a positive images in the region and etc. I think you can go to the TAEF website in order to fully get downloaded the full survey or the full report. That is for the economic implication for the NSP after 8 years. And now we look at to the people to people. As you can see, here's the picture of the Indonesian migrant workers in Taiwan. They were a quite strong supporter of Jokowi at that time. I think it was in the 2019 election. So according to Jokowi, in 10 September 2014, he was still a governor of Jakarta at that time, but has already elected as a president at that time, winning the election. The employment of Indonesian workers should be the basis of our cooperation with Taiwan. So you can see on how the idea of new Southbound policy fits very well with the intention of the Indonesian government to promote migrant workforce cooperation with Taiwan. So the most profound impact of the NSP towards Taiwan is that I think it increased mutual presence. So Southeast Asian are among the largest migrant communities in Taiwan, and this improves socio-cultural awareness and engagement between the two. I live in Taiwan, so let me share my experience living in Taiwan in 2 different periods. So I first went to Taiwan in 2011 until 2013 to do my master degree, and I chose Kaohsiung, which is the second largest city in Taiwan, but it is in the southern region. At that time, the number of Southeast Asian migrant workers or Southeast Asian communities was not that as big as today. Now I returned to Taiwan for a year as a visiting fellow. And the building where I stayed in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, if you go to Taiwan, you will probably be living in an apartment building. So the building that I currently live, there are so many migrant workers there. Indonesian migrant workers work as a caretakers or caregivers for the Taiwanese employers. So whenever I pop up into the lift, I encountered with so many migrant workers, which is a quite different view when I was in Taiwan during the 2011 and 2013. So thanks to the new Southbound policy, because then it means it increased mutual presence between Taiwan and Southeast Asia countries. And also, however, again, increasing mutual presence is not an easy job because there always be an asymmetrical exchange between Taiwan and Southeast Asia. For example, if you look at the number of the Taiwanese students come to Southeast Asia, is still very low. Especially compared to Australia. Like Australia, in a year, they can send around 8,000 to 10,000 students to do language exchange or to take 1 semester exchanges to Indonesia. Yeah, I use the example of Australia because I'm affiliated with the Australian University, and they are actively encouraging Australian students to take 1 semester or a year exchanges to Indonesia to learn the language and also immerse with the people. However, the number compared to the number from Taiwan, it is very low, like only 1,000 per year compared to Australia, 8,000 to 10,000. So again, this is an asymmetrical exchanges that we need to address in the future. For those Australian who go to Indonesia or other Southeast Asian country, they speak the language very well. This is also the gap about language on how to improve the proficiency of East Asian languages in Taiwan, because how do we, if we want to increase mutual presence, of course, language is the first point that we should address on this direction. And the second point is that the increasing direct connections with direct flights between Taiwan and Southeast Asian country. As if I might share my experience, I arrived 3 days ago from Taipei to Surabaya, but there is no direct flight from Taipei to Surabaya, even though Taipei Teto has office in Surabaya since 2015, if I'm not mistaken, or 2018, yeah? 18, yeah? So it's a pity that Taiwan does not have a direct flight from Taipei to Surabaya, even though you have an office there. So maybe this is the case also in Southeast Asia region. So I hope that the lobby could be could work to improve to improve or to address these asymmetrical exchanges between the two. So another critical dimension of people-to-people exchanges between Taiwan and Southeast Asia is how the existence of migrant workers become a contentious issues for national security and foreign policy. It was pertinent, especially when China stopped envoy to the Philippines, threatened the lives of the overseas Filipino workers in Taiwan. As you can see from the statement, Philippines is advised to unequivocally oppose Taiwan independence rather than stoking the fire by offering the US access to the military bases near the Taiwan Strait. If you care about the 150,000 overseas foreign workers in Taiwan. So many academic, or if you learn about international relation theory often consider people to people as a low politics issue, right? People to people as a low politics issue. But then here in the case of Taiwan, with the increasing geopolitical tension across the region, people to people can shift to the high politics issue, becoming a national security issue and foreign policy issue for the country. And it was the case for the Philippines because when the China top ambassador to the Philippines issued this statement, the Philippines response was coming from the National Security Council, coming from the civil society, and also from the president itself, Bongbong Marcos itself. So you can see on how people, which was considered as a low political issue, become a high political issue, even national security issue. So we need to be aware of that, especially for the Southeast Asian government, because the ignorance of the ignorance of the Taiwan in the region is quite high. But actually, migrant workers often caught in between the geopolitical tension. Here, that is the geopolitical impacts of the NSP chip wars. I think a few weeks ago, Trump's statement wreaked havoc Taiwan shares, especially in the chip war. So in the future, we will see this sort of event will be happening in the future, especially following the US election in November, and also the alternative supply chain. Now, if you attend a seminar in Taiwan, these two topics, microchip and supply chains, are the two most priority in dialogue in Taiwan, because I attended a Taiwan Economic Forum 2 weeks ago in Taipei, and these two areas are the main contentious issue right now in Taiwan. And in regards to people, as I mentioned before, that migrant workers are caught in between the geopolitical tension. Contingency plan is also another interesting issue that always been talked by the government in Southeast Asia. What if China use of force in taking over Taiwan? What sort of contingency plan that we should have? Okay, in my discussion with the government representative in Indonesia, they are really concerned about the safety of their workers and also of their citizen in Taiwan. So you can see that how it turns into the national security and foreign policy issue. Here is the latest development about the detention of the Indonesian migrant visitors in Taiwanese boats. So with the increasing geopolitical tension, China regular patrols across the Taiwan Strait are increasing. Of course, with the increasing patrols or military exercises, there would be an increased cases where the Chinese boat will be collide with the Taiwanese boat, and whenever we talk about the Taiwanese boat, there will be at least one Indonesian migrant fisher in that boat. Yeah, so then when the boat was detained, it was not only Taiwanese crew, but also they have Indonesian crews inside. And then as you can see, 3 Indonesian fishermen on Chinese arrested Taiwan ships. Indonesian Consulate General in Guangzhou and Taipei prepare assistances. So it involves the government at the end. At the end, the government, it is the state duty of care about this to these people. So then the our MOFA, Indonesian MOFA, should be ready dealing with Taiwan and also with China in regards to this issue, because the number of this boat coalition is increasing right now, not only in Taiwan, but also in Japan as well. So that's another concern for us. So if I might sum up the impacts of NSP from the ASEAN perspective, ASEAN member countries pretty much welcome the policy, given the nature of the NSP, which focuses on economic cooperation and people-to-people. The policy aligns well with the need and interests of countries in the region. Indonesia, for example, aimed at targeting Indonesia Emas 2015, which focuses on human resources development, and the NSP helps contribute to this goal. Despite the One China policy, the NSP was able to win the hearts and minds of ASEAN member countries as it relies on Taiwan's soft power. However, as I mentioned before, the geopolitical tension across the Taiwan Strait put the economic and people-to-people ties with Southeast Asian country at risk. The interdependency created under the NSP would directly impact ASEAN member countries if China decided to use force over Taiwan. So that's it from my presentation, and I look forward to the Q&A session. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Ratih. I think I'm glad that you mentioned there is a transition from a soft law politic issues when it comes to the issue of Taiwan and people-centered approach. So now let's go to the audience. We're open for question and answers. So if you have any questions to any of our speakers, please raise your hand, and our runner will come give you a mic, and then please state your name and your institution and ask your questions, please. Yeah, the gentleman in blue batik, please.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Gunawan and I'm from Ombudsman of Indonesia. I came here because I think the issue discussed here is very interesting. Ombudsman of Indonesia is an independent institution. It's a state institution, and we have a counterpart in Taiwan, Control Yuan, and we have a very close relations. And before COVID, we have discussed a lot of things, but unfortunately, this is the first time I hear about the new Southbound policy. Even though Dr. Rangga already and Dr. Ratih also already mentioned that it's already 3 presidents, yeah? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And what I want to know is how we could use this relation to, let's say, support the policy, because Dr. Ratih already mentioned several cases that involve Indonesian citizens who works in Taiwan, and also we receive complaints from Indonesian citizens who work in Taiwan. Like few months ago, we received complaints about Indonesian migrant worker at the sea. So it's, and also we have received complaints about I cannot remember exactly, but it's related to human trafficking. So this is something that we can do in partnership with Control Yuan. And after the COVID, we haven't established any communication yet. So maybe through this forum, I can get insight how we could establish that communication again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Gunawan. Maybe we listen from the Taiwanese perspective first, then we can go to Mas Rangga and Ratih after that. So, Prof. Yang, so the question was about how does NSP can help with the protections of migrant workers in Taiwan? What do you have to say about that?
Well, thank you for moderating this Q&A. And also, once again, thank you for the question raised by the on-site participant. I will say that you mentioned that how do we use this relation to support this policy, if I didn't make wrong. But I would say the other way around, how can we, means Taiwan and our partner here, utilize this policy to strengthen the relationship and partnership between Taiwan and Indonesia? I think I will address a few advice along this line. And I'm very delighted to know that your organization work with our control yuan. And that is a good example to show that the civil society sector can work with even Taiwan's government unit, government agency. That's no problem. And I'm very sorry to hear about that. You mentioned some of the complaint on the migrant labor force at sea and also other human trafficking, potential human trafficking issue. I think I cannot speak on behalf of the Taiwanese people, but as a citizen and also as a think tanker, I humbly accept your reminder and also those complaints. As we have been working this new Southbound policy for 8 years, not 3 past presidency. I need to clarify that Taiwan pays much important attention to Southeast Asia starting from 1994. That is the late President Li Denghui, then President Chen Shui-bian of the DPP. And for the KMT President Ma Ying-jeou, he didn't have his own Southeast Asian policy. And then in 2016, President Tsai Ing-wen of DPP, she announced the new Southbound policy. So starting from 2016, that is 8 years only. But this 8 year set up a good foundation. And you also mentioned the human right issue and also the more specific interaction. I think Taiwan, we have our National Human Rights Commission. And I know that ASEAN has the ASEAN Human Rights Commission and some national human rights agency had established in many ASEAN countries. So through this government or government endorsed agency, I think both sides between Taiwan and ASEAN country can work out many useful references to protect the human rights issue, the labor rights issue. That's number one. And number two, regarding the labor right issue, during the past years in Taiwanese society, the general public labor or a term called the runaway labor. But until recent year, they try to take this so-called runaway labor into a migrant labor lost in context. So they try to respect from a more respective way. And even during the pandemic, I think the government also worked quite well with the NGO to ask those migrant labor lost in contact, they can appear and approach the some government agency so that they can take the vaccine for free, and even they can approach those station, the medical station, and they will not be taken by the police officer, since they they will still have the illegal extension of the stay in Taiwan. So those are some cases that I would like to show that we are learning. We are learning to be more responsible and be more resilient and helpful to our friends and our partners. And you also mentioned how can we utilize this forum or this occasion to strengthen the relationship. I would say that I'm very happy to see the Habibi Center always took the lead, also the forum. I remember in 2017, I also attend one event organized by the Habibi Center. There were around 100 DC policy maker and also the expert attending. And that event shows a very important impact to enrich the discussion over Taiwan and also the knowledge about the new Southbound policy. So I think there are a few suggestions that we can utilize. Number one is to regularly organize this event, but not only for the event per se, but also to produce the achievement or the consensus discussed along among our participants and to highlight some priority issue so that we can come up with a publication or even an advocacy paper and then submitted those paper to the decision maker to the at the center level as well as the local level so that they will be over Taiwan-Indonesia relations. That's number one, to utilize the regular event and forum. Number two, I would say also I agree that the previous speaker mentioned we need to understand how Taiwan has been perceived by the society and also the ASEAN people. So we need to come up with more survey to have the scientific evidence to show how Taiwan can do better, what kind of the advantage and disadvantage that Taiwan encounter, and then we can improve ourselves from those solid survey and also the undertaking. Number three, I would say it's important to increase the public exposure, such as through the media, through the channel, and through the newspaper. I have tried to contribute some op-ed to Jakarta Post and also to the local newspaper. But even until this year, I successfully worked with Patrick to contribute one short commentary article on Jakarta Post. However, 5 to 6 years ago, Jakarta Post has covered one Taiwan story on our disaster preparedness governance approach in the eastern part of the rural area, Yilan. And that has been widely spread and acknowledged to uh, learn from Taiwan, and Taiwan also can learn from Indonesia on the flood prevention efforts. So number one is the think tank activity and collaboration. Number two is the evidence based on the scientific evidence to increase the mutual understanding. And we can, from Taiwan, we can improve ourselves. Number three is to enhance the media's impact and public exposure so that we can understand mutually and will be aware of what will be the priority issue that we can target and come up with the feasible step of the action plan. I think I speak too much. I may stop here. Thank you very much for your concern and also comment. And I will also convey those complaints regarding the migrant labor rights and also human rights issue to some of the government agency and to those decision makers. Thank you very much. Terima
Thank you,
kasih.
Dr. Thank you, Dr. Yang. I know Mbak Ratih is doing research on migrant workers at the moment, so maybe you can share a little bit about that, Mbak.
Actually, my current research with Taiwan Fellowship is about the migrant labor protections from the perspective of the Indonesian MOFA. So in regard to the protection of migrant workers is a challenging issue, Pak, actually. We have to acknowledge that first. It is a challenging issue because these migrant workers are transnational. They are the sending countries is in Indonesia and the receiving is in Taiwan. And when it comes to these transnational movements of migrant labor, it needs coordination and collaboration and communication dialogue, regular one between Taiwanese government and Indonesian government. But if you look at several laws governing the migrant labor protection in Indonesia, it is the state duty of care, means the Indonesian government state of duty to take care the migrant workers, even though when they are overseas in Taiwan. And in Taiwan, it is the job of our representative office, KDAE, to look after these migrant workers and also the Taiwanese employers. So currently, in order to improve the protection of migrant visitors, particularly migrant visitors, the Indonesian government and also civil societies organization in Indonesia proposed the BLMA, Bilateral Labor Migration Agreement, on migrant visas. And I think this BLMA, so it is advice for Taiwan, be ready with this because the Indonesian government will propose, the plan of the Indonesian government is to propose this BLMA to the Taiwanese government. So then, because if we look at migrant visas, their working conditions are different from the migrant workers in the land, like in manufacturing or in domestic industries, because migrant workers at seas, they work in the high seas, they live in the boat, and they have direct connections with their home, the land in Taiwan, and also and other precarious working conditions. So that's why the Indonesian government and also civil society groups promoted this BLMA, and hopefully then this BLMA will be proposed to the Taiwanese counterpart. So I hope that the Taiwanese government will take this uh, initiative seriously with the Indonesian government. That's the first one. And the second one that we can do is the renewing the bilateral labor agreement. Because I think we have to renew it every 5 years and having a regular dialogue at least once in a year to coordinate on the labor situation between Taiwan and Indonesia. And also include the article of labor protections. I think the Indonesian government currently work on how to improve labor protection, especially during crisis. I think at the ASEAN ministerial meeting in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, they already have this statement on improving labor protection during crisis, but it's still questionable whether this crisis also refer to the situation in the Taiwan Strait, because in that article, the crisis is only referred to the pandemic and force majeure. So maybe this force majeure one included into the case of Taiwan, the increasing geopolitical tension in Taiwan. So I think those three agendas will be put by the Indonesian government in the near future. So then this is a wake-up call for the Taiwanese counterparts to respond positively for these three initiatives that will be brought by the Indonesian government in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbak Ratih. Next, why don't we go to Mas Rangga?
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe Ratih also already covered about the people-to-people relations, especially in the migrant workers. But from Pak Gunawan, I would like to how we can use this initiative and connection, right? I think if Mbak Ratih mentioned about asymmetrical, what asymmetrical exchanges, then I should say that in the sense of government to government relations, there is asymmetrical efforts from the Indonesian government. In that sense, I would like to say uh, we already have all the features, like we have Taiwan desk in some of the ministry. We already have the joint working group for many things. It's annually. Also, for particularly with the human trafficking and smuggling, we already have the substantial cooperation in 2012 and many more. And I think the joint office in our IETO in Taipei, it's consists of many ministry there. But how the Indonesia government could utilize this and optimally and bring this into translate this into our interests when we have a cooperation with Taiwan in the mutual benefit basis. It's very important because um, in Taiwan they already have those all guidelines with the NSP, but from the Indonesian side, I think we might have a guideline, but it's separately in a few ministries. So uh, we should have a kind of forum internally and coordination regarding this and utilize all the feature that we have in order to dealing or get benefits with this. Uh, and in in doing this, we also have to put our IETO Indonesian Economic and Trade Office in Taipei as the front line. Otherwise, it's quite difficult to have exchange, or the exchange sometimes it's not. I can say it's not too substantial from our part, but in Taiwan part, I think it's already the effort already good, and we should just do the same effort in order to increase our cooperation and our understanding with government to government relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mas Rangga. Maybe we can have one more questions, and then I'm gonna ask the speakers to directly wrap up their closing statement as well. Maybe we can have one more questions from the audience. Yeah, the lady in Batik.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for your very detailed briefing. My name is Judith. I'm from the Singapore Mission to ASEAN. My question was a little bit more on what has been the domestic sentiments towards the NSP in Taiwan itself. Because I think many of the speakers talked about how there's an asymmetry of exchanges in terms of having maybe more interest from ASEAN member states going into Taiwan, whether it's business opportunities and investments. I think we mentioned migrant workers and we also mentioned students, for example. Do you think that this asymmetry will impact the longevity of this NSP policy in terms of it being a longer lasting policy than the previous Southbound policy? So I would love to hear your views on that. Thank you.
Right. Maybe we go to Prof. Young first. So the question is about what is the domestic sentiment of NSP in Taiwan, Prof?
Well, this is a good question. I can divide it into two parts. My response will be divided into two parts. Number one is, in general, the domestic sentiment regarding the new southbound policy in terms of politician. Well, the opposition party of Taiwan criticized this new southbound policy because they prioritize Taiwan's external relations should be working with China harmoniously. So the new southbound policy will be regarded as, you know, a failure because it cannot really overturn our dependence on Chinese market. So that's during the past 7 even to 8 years, they continue to criticize this new southbound policy. And that's my take for the domestic sentiment in Taiwan. However, even they are aware of the achievement of trade and investment diversification between Taiwan in line with the new southbound policy. they still utilize any channel to argue that the cross-strait ties should be prioritized. And the other one for the long-term engagement, since there are many Southeast Asian residents living in Taiwan, in terms of hundreds, thousands of the students and migrant worker, transnational spouse. I think there are two important legacy. Number one is they are familiar with Taiwan, and if they had good experiences living in this society, they will be a good storyteller back home. I have a few student, doctoral student and master student who used to under my supervision, and we get along with each other and we explore any common interest during their stay. So when they return to their home country, they continue their interest working on Taiwan issue, not only in terms of the private sector. They try to understand Taiwan more and also to help promote that to continue the partnership with Taiwan is of no harm, but will be mutually beneficial. So I think that's number one. They will, if they can get along with uh, Taiwanese society, and if they feel comfortable in living with us, that will be a very important supporter and Taiwan friendly community in our neighboring country. And number two, for the general public's perception among Taiwanese society, I would say, comparing with the 1990s, Taiwanese people, we are not very conservative, but some elder generation, they were not used to the different religious and culture. So in 1990s, definitely there are some complaint against Taiwanese senior citizen that they are some migrant worker. They are not comfortable because they were forced to eat pork. So I think the elder generation are not used to they are not educated that to coexist or co-live with the Muslim society. But after 20 years, after 30 years, I think our society become more open-minded and more, well-educated. Even my children, my son and my daughter, they listen to the radio, and also their textbook are featured with Southeast Asian story, culture, and also diversity, and they regard themselves as a part of Asian community. So I think that has a profound impact to Taiwanese society, especially to our younger generation, that the Asian identity has been enriched and has been shaping among Taiwanese locality. And not only that Asian identity, but also when you visited the neighborhood or the small lands of Taiwanese, not only in the urban city, but in some small city, you can find the Southeast Asian restaurant, such as the Vietnamese pho restaurant, Thai restaurant, and that can be easily found in the neighborhood. And those restaurants were managed and run by the transnational marriage spouse and some of their relatives living in Taiwan. So I think those interesting phenomena trigger the social economic transformation of Taiwanese society. and make us more familiar with our neighbors. I think that's a very positive phenomenon. I hope I have answered some of your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I think that question is a little bit too domestic to help Barati and Mas Rangga to conclude their statement. So why don't we conclude with this question, Mas and Ba? So considering the geopolitical nature of the Southeast Asian region, China remains a powerful influence in our region. So in your opinion, how should ASEAN countries safely engage with the NSP without any pushback from the Chinese counterpart? So maybe we can talk about that and we can end the sessions after that.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is quite tough questions, but it's remind me with the discussion in our National Resilience Institute about this particular issue, about how the cross-strait relations appear to become the one of security issues concern in the region, and how we can dealing with this, especially in this issue. I think there is three things that we can work with this issue. The first one is we should consider that Taiwan issues or the cross-straits issues, it's sometimes people still in a very traditional understanding about the cross-straits relations, about how people perceive the cross-strait relations, and sometimes to some extent, in the case of Indonesia, for instance, it's like trapped in the so-called one China policy. I think it's important to put forward and put on the table first our interests regarding this issue, and find the any possible way to have a cooperation. I think sometimes because from China there is always a complaint, a memo, so on and so forth. It makes our government or some of government in Southeast Asia become really carefully to dealing with the issue. I think it's always become the China job to send memo for everything that we do with the Taiwan. But in the end of the day, it is us who decide what we are going to do with our interests with Taiwan. And as long as it's not jeopardize any our principle with China, I think we should go for it. In fact, for instance, like in Indonesia case, we have the so-called presidential decree number 4894 said it's only economy, but in fact we have a lot of substantial cooperation with Taiwan apart from the economic things. We have educational things, we have migrant workers, people smuggling, so on and so forth. Even we have economic development agreement in Morotai development agenda. So I think that's the first thing, how we calculate our interest and find the best way to do it. So, and my best suggestion is work with our channel in IETO. Second one, it's when we deal with this situation, we also have to use the people-to-people connection. Uh, in people-to-people connection, especially in the academic side, for instance, like me, Mbak Ratih, and Mas Patrick, we came from the scholars, but in Taiwan, there's a lot of people that study in Taiwan, came from various background, and their background, some of them is a public servant, some of them is a business people, some of them is scholars like us, and many other various background from the government institution. And those who already there have a connection, know the situation, now where they should, where which people they should meet. It's very important to could enhance this cooperation, and I think we should work with this situation, or we with the circumstances that many people in there, and while they are in there, we should make connection with our people. I mean, the Indonesian people that there, and have a connection with Taiwan. Like for instance, Mbak Ratih now fellowship in Taiwan and know a lot of think tank, research center, so on and so forth. Then people in Indonesia government should work with it, with Mbak Ratih, for instance, and any other people in there. I think there will be an invisible hub for us in dealing with Taiwan issue. The last but not least, this is always my favorite one. Deal with the cutting edge issue. I think Professor Yang already mentioned about semiconductor. One of the things that will be considered as the next NSP, and I think currently in global foundries, Taiwan it's like global foundries is like 68% of a global market. It's came from Taiwan. Taiwan really good in below 7 nanometers a chip. Also, IC industry in total, Taiwan also the global output value is like 70%. So I think work with this also will help us to find and to distribute many things with the global supply chain. And to some extent, I can say a lot of country in ASEAN, I mean in Southeast Asia, now dealing with their semiconductor industry. In Indonesia, now we established these things, and when we work with this, when this has become one of public goods currently with many of generative AI, many of our device that needs this chip, we will tap into the global supply chain, and to some extent deepening our relation and connection with Taiwan, one of the best producers for this semiconductor in the global. I think that's all I can say. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mas Rangga. I think those are very, very good advice. Now, why don't we go to Mbak Ratih for the final statement of the seminar?
I think I share the same view to Mas Rangga. When engaging Taiwan without disturbing China, it's a difficult job. It's a tough job, of course, for every government in the world that has that built engagement with Taiwan. But I always pointed out that one China policy is a gray zone. It's a gray zone area in every country's foreign policy because if we look at the case of Indonesia, for example, we signed the memorandum of understanding on the diplomatic resumption with China in the 1989 or 1990s, yeah, or 1990s. It says clearly that we can build relationship with Taiwan in the area of economic and trade, expanded area of economic and trade. So, and then if we look at the NSP, it clearly talks about economic and socio-cultural relations. So it shouldn't be a problem for us, and that is the beauty of a gray zone area of the one China policy, and we should embrace it as an attracting way to engage with Taiwan. And also, if let's say the Chinese diplomats in Indonesia, in Jakarta, in Manila, send a diplomatic note, that is their job. That is their job to send a diplomatic note, and our job is to respond to that diplomatic note. As long as the policy or the action that we take in line with our strategic or core in national interests, then we should do it. Like one of the steps that the MOFA took took in 2018 by establishing or sending diplomats to our office in KDAI is actually one of a good improvement in articulating one China policy, and we hope to see the same thing happen in the future when we are brave enough to deal with the one China policy, because it is a gray zone, and it's always beautiful to embrace the gray zone area. If the US could have the strategic ambiguity towards Taiwan, why don't we have the same thing for our country itself? And Manila, let's say now Philippines, has been stepping forward on how they are articulating one China policy for their national interests and how Philippines, let's say, improving their ties with the US because the Philippines is definitely threatened by what China has done in the South China Sea. So Singapore, let's say, they could have a military training. Singapore could have can have military training with Taiwan, even until now, even though it is discrete. So why not of having or engaging Taiwan? Because one China policy is always a gray zone area for every country's foreign policy.
Thank you so much, Ratih. I think with that statement, we have arrived at the end of the seminar. Once again, on behalf of the Habibie Center, I would like to thank Mas Rangga, Dr. Yang, Ratih for joining us today. And I also would like to thank our audience here and also in our YouTube for their time. And we hope to see you again in the next Talking ASEAN. Have a nice day. Thank you so much, everyone.